Rick has been our auto tariff guy.
Oh, too.
Looking at what's been happening between the U.S. and Europe. In no uncertain terms, you've been telling us these tariffs were a bad idea. So I guess it's not a surprise necessarily that they're being pushed back.
Here's why they're a bad idea. So if Trump actually did this, if he imposed 25% tariffs on all auto imports, even if you exempt Canada and Mexico, the average cost of a car would rise by $2,400, whether it's an import or a domestically made car. We'd lose about 1.2 million car sales per year, and it would kill about 200,000 jobs. So how does that sound for a president who's trying to run for re-election in Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the industrial Midwest?
Well,
it's just a terrible idea.
I imagine that he would argue that this would advantage domestically made cars.
The general idea here, which most economists say is not the way it works, is that if you raise the cost of imports, then you will spur more domestic manufacturing. And I suppose that if you really did raise the walls around the U.S. economy that drastically in time, we probably would have no choice. But everything would cost more because it costs more to make stuff here. And so when stuff costs more, you buy less of it. That's why trade works, because we get to buy the cheapest stuff wherever it can be made, and it's the most efficient way to produce stuff. Raise the cost, you buy less, and living standards go down.
In the modern world, though, if you look at a GM or you look at a Ford, especially with GM, I mean, they have European operations in which parts, I would doubt it's a large portion in U.S.-produced automobiles, but it's possible that they're sourcing parts from their own partners in Europe. So this would go against the theory, hey, it's great for a domestic automaker, isn't it?
I think that's exactly right. We've got a much more integrated supply chain, particularly in auto, which is very much, if you actually look at all the trade between the EU and the US, auto is about 12% auto-related components or finished goods, which is a huge amount. So if you think about the complexity, and you're right, some of it is within company importing and exporting, it's not just the cost of the components. Some of these are very highly engineered, enormous research and development cost has gone into it, and finding alternative sources domestically isn't that simple, and 6 months isn't too long to figure it out either.
And something I've been wanting to ask you as we've been having all of these trade discussions, most of the tariffs have to do with stuff that you can touch, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a car, whether it's a shirt, whatever it may be. Does that lead you as an investor to pivot more towards services at a time like this? Or are you going to end up seeing a ripple effect there also from the tariffs? I mean, is there anywhere to hide, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think that's a really interesting question. I think it depends on what kind of services you look at. So if you look at, for example, financial technology, so it's services that's very highly automated, the actual labor component of that's low, that's actually proven often to be a defensive sector in these kinds of times of uncertainty. If you're talking about services that are very people intensive, and then you look at the tightness of the labor market that we've got in the US right now, you look at the wage growth pressures we're starting to tick up, you may see immunity from the overall trade volatility, but you still got a lot of exposure to the domestic tightness we're seeing.
Rick, to wrap this up, because I know how you feel about the auto tariffs, but we still have to approve NAFTA, the new NAFTA, and right. Congress doesn't seem to be making much progress there, and we have a trade war with China. It seems as if the president, better or worse, took one off the table before it came to shoot him in the foot.
I think that's a good analysis, and I think he may be taking another one off the table, because there are also reports that we may be getting close to a point where we remove the tariffs on imported steel and aluminum from Canada and Mexico. That is basically considered a precondition for Congress to ratify the new NAFTA you just referred to, and also those countries in return would take off some new tariff they put on things like agricultural products, which is what Chuck Grassley, Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, has been complaining about. And he basically said publicly, "I've told Trump we need to get rid of these tariffs on China, on Canada and Mexico. If you expect us to approve this new deal, those tariffs have to go." And we might be getting there.
All right, Rick Newman, thank you.
Thanks, guys.